The other study we did was to look at multi-channel services as part of this increasing understanding of the complexities in the relationships between government and citizens. The Information Society Directorate wanted to understand how should services be delivered to socially disadvantaged groups. Project Zero, all electronic, was clearly not sustainable. So what exactly was it that was required? And this was the multi-channel study. Now this diagram, I'd have to say, looks incredibly complex, but I would simply refer you to Marta's presentation, because what Marta has done empirically with that research is to show that delivering services to socially disadvantaged groups requires the powerful role of intermediaries, often trusted intermediaries. One of the case studies we looked at was with the Roma community in Hungary, where there was strong distrust of the Roma by any government services. They just did not trust government. They felt that those were the enemy. But by using the trusted people within their community to build and design the service portfolios, they could actually achieve the goals much more effectively. So the role of people, of intermediaries, is very powerful and operates, of course, very strongly at local and community level. The question is, how can you scale it? And how can you generalize it? Because it requires money and it requires resources. And the two diagrams which we've got here from the multi-channel study, in a sense, say it's designing the service portfolios around the needs of the communities. So you may have your classic set of government services online, but they do need to be made bespoke for the people in the socially disadvantaged groups. The ultimate irony of doing this in a time of economic crisis, of course, is this is the time when the need is highest and the resources are least. And we have an increasing prioritization of money. Part of the reaction in the UK has been a word which I don't think the Prime Minister has announced, has used, at least in the past 2 months. It's called big society. This idea that we'll have this big society, we're all in the community together, social groups, third sector groups, voluntary groups would take over the running of public libraries, and then we would not need to have the cost of government at such a high level. I think he has realized it's far more complex than actually using the term, and I think that now has been quietly scrubbed out of the speeches. So the two diagrams that here, as I said, I'm not going to go through because Marta's done it already much more eloquently than I could ever do. So the join now that I bring is the final part of that, the 2010, with some of the challenges that are starting to face the strategy moving forward to 2020. One is cloud. 2 or 3 years ago, we never used the word cloud. Suddenly, this constellation, it's almost this invisible constellation of gigantic servers out there, Amazon and Google and everybody, with all this spare capacity, and this is going to give us a sort of virtual infrastructure to use. Linking to Christos's presentation just now, I think there was something last week which actually was saying that if people had cloud computers in their home, then actually that will be free power because of all the heat that's generated. And if you read Stephen Levy's brilliant book on the history of Google, inside the Googleplex, he'll say that part of the initial design of Google was to pack servers in a way that actually sort of minimized the heat generation and maximized the efficient use of energy. So Google has always been driven by the sustainability argument. The democratic deficit is another word which now is very much in the lexicon of the Commission. This idea, how do we increase democratic participation? It's been a huge problem, hasn't it, with European MEPs. I think most people that I know will be hard-pressed to actually name their MEP. Maybe in a community here where you have a limited number, you may know them. But I think most British people, if you ask them, who's your MEP? They would go, what? What is it? A lot of them don't even know who their domestic MP is, even their local representatives. So there's this identification with the processes and the champions of democracy is increasingly challenging. And of course, not only are we trying to maintain cohesion in Europe, but we're trying to enlarge it to bring the Balkan states in as well. Very, very strong processes there. So the 2020 strategy in the context of the digital agenda, which is primarily my brief, is structured around a number of key pillars. And these key pillars, as you can see, have emerged organically out of that sort of 15, 20-year process of trying to understand how the information society will really deliver. And some of the challenges remain, such as productivity. Will the information society and this technology generate the productivity demands and benefits that have been predicted? In the UK, I think some of the recent Audit Commission reports would actually say no. The recent evaluations of the health information, the health records initiative has shown it to be a gigantic waste of money. This idea that we had to integrate all of our health information into a single electronic patient record that would move around with us has become a sort of centralized project which has sucked money out and in the end is being largely cancelled. By contrast, there are some pragmatically driven commercial initiatives. There's a commercial initiative called the Follow Me. I think followme.com was developed simply by a mother in the States who was fed up walking around into hospitals with her son who had a congenital illness and telling them each time all of the problems, all of the drug dependencies, all of the reactions. So she set up a little website and said, look, just read this. And that's developed into a website where people start to participate. They can voluntarily register their data, and it can travel with them. And there are some examples of projects in communities in Sweden. Helene Richardson has championed them, where the community has decided we want our data to travel with us because they're always going from Sweden on holiday down to Tenerife or Lanzarote or to Malaga. So they have a website, a community website, which has all of their data. So many of these services and services portfolios can be self-designed rather than be designed for you. And self-design and self-running of services is another part of these motivations. Now, the digital agenda is also highly transversal. And unfortunately, other people here are taking particular parts of it. Some of the links I've put here into Horizon 2020 is exactly what Luke will talk about in terms of the innovation agendas and the links between education and technology, business and innovation. But another one that's worthwhile linking to is what they call the Innovation Partnership for Active and Healthy Aging. It's a thing which is incredibly dear to my heart, of course, and links to some of the other themes which we'll see as we go through the more detail of the digital agenda. Firstly, there are threats. Cyber terrorism, cyber warfare, the risk to using online, and the various technologies of surveillance that can go on. Are we moving into an information society that really is unbelievably surveillant, where everything we ever do is going to be stored and we're never going to be able to do it? How do we protect our children? The Safer Internet Forum